Mic check 1 2. Testing 1 2. Mic check 1 2.
Guam Legislature is back in session. Afternoon, good morning, everyone. The next item on the agenda is Bill 50, and Senator Nelson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to make a motion to move Bill 50-34 to the third reading file.
On that motion, hearing no objections, so ordered.
I'd like it up for discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I just want to make sure, is it the bill as introduced or was there another version?
Bill as introduced, Senator.
As introduced, okay, thank you.
Is Senator Snogstein?
Speaker, I just received the financial report from the Mayor's Council. If I could share this with my colleagues.
You'll be recognized after the opening statement.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank the Committee Chairman of Finance, of Education, Finance, and Taxation, Senator Joseph Augustine, and his committee members who were present to report on this bill, Senator Rodriguez, Senator Castro, Senator Uggan, Senator Estevez, and Senator Muya. Thank you for moving this report expeditiously. And I'd also like to thank my colleagues, Speaker Cruz, for your support in agreeing to co-sponsor this bill and to provide appropriations to offset the impact to the Mayor's Council of Guam. I'd also like to thank Vice Speaker Talahi and Senator Lee for their constant encouragement and support of this bill, and Senator San Nicolas, Senator Castro, Senator Estevez, Senator Espadon, Senator Morrison, Senator Torres, and Senator Rodriguez for giving me the opportunity to have this bill on the session floor. Colleagues, today I humbly request your support for Bill 50-34. Now, just a little bit of history on this bill. This first came to my attention, of course, when it was put out in the media that this casino was still operating even outside of the Liberation Day Carnival timeline. And I asked myself, how is this happening? You know, being a freshman senator, trying to understand the politics of it all. And why are we still doing this? If we know that gambling is an addiction, if we know that it's hurting the families of our island, why, as lawmakers, are we continuing to do this? And I asked, how did this happen for so many years? How did we manage to turn a blind eye? And I want to point out that gamblers are at risk of more than they are aware of. The covert. Casinos provide rigged dice and games of chance, even if that chance of winning is infinitesimally small. These games are designed to take increasing amounts of people's money until none is left. This tactic is intentional. It's created with the purpose of using mind games to make money off of people. You know, through the months they're saying, well, who are you to tell me to do with my money, what to do with my money? And it's not about that. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. I'm simply removing a vehicle that harms our families out of our society. And I want it to be known that the consequences of gambling does not remain within the casino. It does not remain in the building, and it does not remain within the grounds. This consequence leaves and enters the homes of the family. And it has been documented and studied and researched throughout the years on thousands of occasions where this has happened. And I'll quote, in a study done by the International Journal of Mental Health and addiction, it states, gambling in relation to violence in individuals who develop an addiction to gambling are often physically and mentally abusive towards their spouse and family members. Families are the backbone of any society. If you want to destroy a family, your target is the family. And if you can manage to disjoint a family, then you're winning to destroy that society. And in our society, our family is the fabric that our culture is woven upon. It literally, in our culture, we literally value the families and the extended families. Many of us, it takes a community to raise. Essentially for me, I was a rebellious child growing up, didn't listen to my parents. My godparents came in, didn't listen to them. My aunts and my uncles came in, didn't listen to them. And these are various stages of development. And eventually my grandparents came in, and I listened. So all this intervention, because I had the support of my family, was because of them. Families are the backbone of our society. It is part of our culture. My cousins are not my cousins, they're my brothers and sisters. My aunts are not my aunts, they're my mothers. And same to my uncles, they are like my father. In an article from the New York Times, John E. Grant, a professor of psychiatry of the University of Chicago, stated, "The gambling problems of the people who are coming in for treatment, or who we see in our research, appear to be more severe than they were 10 to 15 years ago." So essentially gambling and casinos, they don't help build a society, no matter how much revenue they bring in. It is being proven that things are becoming worse and worse as we continue to allow this operation to function. Now I want to share with you a story because, it was put out there that I met with the mayors. Yes, I did have a private meeting with the mayors. And in one of the discussions, a mayor shared an instance where this man, and he gave the man's name, came up to him and said, "Mayor, my wife is an addict, and she goes gambling in the casino." The mayor responded to me, "That's not my problem. That is not my problem." My colleagues, this is our problem. And it was very surprising to me that that mayor felt that was essential to tell me that it was not his problem, when essentially he is part of the force that supports this casino. By condoning the presence of this casino, we are fostering addiction and many social issues, the destructions of families, violence, abuse. This is our problem. Now, when this bill was introduced, my primary focus was thinking this was a good bill. This will eliminate the casinos, therefore, pulling apart the addiction, helping our families. But then this bill grew and it became much more than that. It became a matter of public accountability. There's no evidence that proves this casino operation is 100% honest and goodwill. 100% honest and goodwill. I'm glad Senator San Agustin came up and said, "I had the financial report." But that was the holdup for the committee report, because he was waiting for the financial report And now there's many questions. How is this casino operating? Where is the money coming from to operate this casino? Where is the money coming from for that building right next to Paseo that can house 4 families? Who is in control of the casino? Could never get a straight answer when we asked who's part of this historical liberation society. Never a straight answer. I got a response. There are some former mayors, but never a straight answer. Where are the detailed expenditure reports? Where are the documents indicating the distribution, taxation of revenue? Little to nothing is known about this casino, except that it was printed in the media that they have claimed that the casino has declined in recent years. And so this, creates further questions, and really I'm impressed in the sense where that we continue to let this operate, and now we're putting our price tag on things. No casino, no Liberation Day Carnival. So you're telling me that for years prior, we were able to operate without a casino, and now you're telling me that the balance of no casino weighs on the Liberation Day Carnival. You're going to take that away from the people. And if we continue to allow this casino to operate, knowing full well what gambling does historically in our nation, because it knows no geographic location, it knows no age, it knows no color, no ethnic background, there's no prejudice against this. We're simply telling the people, by condoning this operation, that, hey, the casino is more important than your mortgage. It's more important than your ability to feed your children breakfast, lunch, and dinner meals. And essentially, the casino is more important than your very own life. Now, I want to share an instance, and there are thousands of cases after doing much research on this gambling situation, on this addiction. Much research shows that there is a lot of people that are committing suicide. There's a lot of acts of violence. Executives launder money so that they can pay their casino debt. No age, ethnic background, no social class is gambling prejudice of. It targets everything that is good in our society. So I'm going to read with you, if you just bear with me. Paraphrase this article. Suicide at the Detroit Casino. The human cost of legalized gambling. Last Wednesday afternoon, January 26, a gambler committed suicide after losing thousands of dollars in the high roller VIP section of the newly operated Motor City Casino in Detroit. Solomon Bell, 38, an off-duty police officer from suburban Detroit, lost between $15,000 and $20,000 in wagers that day. After losing $3,500 at the blackjack table at $500 a hand, Bell put out his service revolver and shot himself in the head. Amazing that this man became a commodity. His life was worth no more than $20,000 in his mind. Have you ever seen anyone die? Have you ever witnessed a gunshot wound to the head? I think Senator Esteves can relate to what I'm talking about. You come on scene, you see the brain pieces everywhere. The patient is bleeding out from the head. His face is still intact, looking at you in fear. You put him on the gurney, you rush him to the ER, and you're thinking, if he survived this long, maybe he can survive. Maybe there's a chance that we could save his life. Even though all experience in the past, because you've seen this before, and all scientific study and everything that you've practiced tells you there's no way that this person's going to live. You do everything you can to stabilize him. You bring him to the hospital. You rush him into the room. His family follows behind. His wife is crying. His children is suffering. And you hope for a miracle. You hope that because he has a pulse, because he's still breathing on his own, that maybe there's just a way we could save his life. And then the reality settles in. And then the patient is gone. You look at your hands and your clothes, and it's all bloody. You look at the family and you see immense, immense suffering. Think if this happened in your family. Think if this happened in your family. Would it not make you suffer? Those who have followed the casino industry and its tremendous growth, last Wednesday's events did not come as a surprise. Amazing. It did not come as a surprise that this man took his life. We expect people to commit suicide, said Sheila Clay, agency director for a program that runs a hotline for gambling addicts. But to do it in the casino, that's shocking. To be shocked that someone took his life in a casino is shocking. But the fact that this man took his life does not faze them. Solomon Bell was the type of person the casinos seek to attract. As a suburban policeman, he made $75,000 that year in salary and overtime, owned several cars, and was buying a home. The majority of casino patrons are Detroiters with far less means, general working people, many poor, hoping to hit it big and move out of poverty. The majority of casino patrons are generally working people, many poor, hoping to hit it big and move out of poverty. Detroit was once proudly called the auto capital of the world. But in the year 2000, there are only 2 remaining auto assembly plants within the city limits. In their place, garish casinos have sprouted up, surrounded by poverty and blight. In their place of the auto assembly plants, casinos have sprouted up, surrounded by poverty and blight. So if we want to argue it's receiving revenue, there's many studies done, many scientific studies, quantitative done, that shows just the opposite, but only it benefits a select few, not the society as a whole. Gambling is at best an unhealthy industry that accentuates the inequality in society, acting as a cash nexus, transforming everyone and everything into a commodity. My life, your life, your life, your life, your life is a commodity. There's nothing of value in your life. You have become a commodity. Culturally, the growth of the gambling industry is yet another example of social decay, a parasitic enterprise that appeals to the worst instincts, greed. No casino, no Liberation Day carnival. Individualism. You versus me. The amount of division that this has caused within our elected leaders, I'm surprised. And indifference. This is not my problem. Bill number 50-34 is here to show that the social ramification of gambling and the voices of the people of Guam offset any revenue. And remember, year after year, the people have voted no. Our public safety, our social environments, our representative government, our rich history, they are not for sale. This is our chance to put out the fire that gambling has sparked in this community. And I'm pleading with you, all of my colleagues, to not underestimate the significance of your vote. Your vote is very precious here today. Your vote will determine whether we want to do what is good for our families and our society, or whether we want to do what is good to line the pockets of others. I want to remind you that addiction has no prejudice on age, ethnicity, social class, or geographic location. Sure, we can argue this happened in Detroit, but there are many other instances that this has occurred. This week, we have been given the grace to put an end to this addiction, to put an end to the disease. We have been given the grace to have the ability to remove a vehicle of addiction from our community. We have been given a grace to preserve our families, restore our community, and do away with really rots the very core of our heritage as a people. My colleagues, I humbly plead with you to support this bill, to remove all logic, and to really look at the impact that it does to a society, that the suffering and immense pain that it causes to a family, to take away the numbers, to not tell the people that money is more important than your life. May God give us the courage to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Nelson. Senator San Augustine, as chairman, I understand you wish to augment the committee report?
That's correct, Speaker. I have was given this by email from the Mayor's Council, Mayor Huffman, so I can provide this to the colleagues.
Do you have copies for all members? Do you have copies for all members?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Have it distributed. Do you wish to be heard on the bill? Any senator wish to be heard on the bill? Okay, because if someone would take the chair, I'll come down.
Senator, Speaker Cruz, you are recognized. Senator Atta, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I applaud the author of Bill 50 and her passion against gambling, and I share that. I share that position also, and I'm certainly not for gambling. And let me just, before I actually go into it, let me just kind of share a personal experience that I had, which has really put that bad taste in my mouth. So when I was young, I was about 12 years old. I worked hard every weekend, and I would go around the neighborhood and cut grass and earn some money. And so the money that I earned, 3/4 of that I would give to my mom, and the other what's left of it. She says, do with it as you want. So I went down to the carnival, and at the time I was playing, there was the over and under games and all that. And so I went down there with, I believe, 25 cents. Back in my time, 25 cents was a lot of money. So I went in there and I put down my 25 cents. I won. Put it down again. I won again. Man, I think I built it up to about $3. And I kept playing because it was like, God, this is good. It feels good. And then finally, by the end of the night, I walked out there with not even the 25 cents that I came there with. And again, that was a lot of money. So that really devastated me. I never went back again and put a bet money on the table. So ever since then, I mean, we all gamble. We all gamble in one way or another. I think some people call it gambling, others saying you take risks, whatever. But to put hard-earned money on the table and just to watch it, evaporate was devastating for me. Now, I, regardless of how this thing turns out, I will support Bill 50 because it makes an inroad into the issue of gambling. But I am having difficulty in reconciling Bill 50, the issue of partial ban versus total ban. Now, if we take a look at in Section 3, we continue to allow, for example, cockfighting, right? And cockfighting is allowed, and it will not be subject to any of the misdemeanor penalties so long as that activity is conducted in a licensed location. And there is no penalty. It's legal if the people who are betting are doing so within that facility. So we have the Dedido cockfight. It's a licensed facility. You can go in there and bet all your money that you want, and no problem with that. That's a legal activity. Well, so then you take a look at the casino, and it's operating on a licensed location. They got the building permit. Maybe they're not using legal workers, but they got a building permit, and they've been sanctioned to be able to put it there. And all the bettors are betting within the facility. So it meets the same requirements, as far as I'm aware of, that cockfighting does. And then we take a look at bingo and lottery. Bingo and lottery is defined as gambling, but it's legal so long as it is being operated by a non-profit organization. And as I understand it, I guess whatever that organization is, the Historical Society, is a bona fide non-profit organization. Or at least based on what was published in the media today, somebody went checking and they found that it is a bona fide non-profit organization. So it meets that test. That's legal, but casino gambling is not. So I'm just wondering, how then do we reconcile, that conflict between, these other activities? Cockfight, bingo, lottery, they're meeting the requirements of law. So is casino gambling. But for some reason, I think probably what's putting the bitter taste in our mouth about casino gambling in particular is how it's been exploited. First, it started out just for the Liberation Day Carnival. Then we found a way around that, okay, well, as long as it's in conjunction with a village fiesta, we can do that. So I kind of feel like, man, you're taking me for a ride. And so that to me maybe is the issue that we need to address. I know that I also drive by when it was up at Tizan. I would drive by on Route 16 there, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, wee hours of the morning, and there's lots of cars there. And you wonder, what? Don't these people have a life? Or maybe they're throwing it away over that casino gambling place. And maybe that's the issue that's really kind of gnawing at us. And maybe that's the issue that we need to address. Then we read about how for 4 years there's been no audit. And when the question was asked, with all that activity that goes on, how much has the mayor's council received? Like $4,000? And it can't help but elicit the response of, are you kidding me? And so maybe that's the issue that we need to address as to how do we corral this? Do we make sure that you can only operate up to midnight? And after midnight, we're going to contract an auditing company to come in and sit down with you and count the money. This is your take. This here is what goes to the government, and we'll settle it right there before you can open the next evening. So it's kind of like, maybe we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And, if we're going to continue to allow cockfighting and bingos, and yeah, it's going to reduce the profit margin of whoever is operating it, because now we have to put in all these checks and balances. But maybe that's really what's gnawing at us. It's interesting because I was listening to KUAM, and I was listening to this Chamorro gentleman. I thought he was very wise. And he says, what are we really accomplishing? We shut down that casino. All we're going to do, and if we talk about, gambling is an addiction and all that stuff, all we're going to do is that money that was being thrown away at the casino is just going to find its way to, your other game rooms around the island. Maybe even to a cockfight. Maybe a good bingo here and there. So we really did not address the fundamental problem, that we're trying to get rid of these venues where these addictions can be satisfied. All we're doing is we're shutting this down, and it's like a balloon. You squeeze it here, it's going to find its way someplace else. And if we're not going to be able to, if we're not willing to, I know in the past we said outlaw cockfighting. Oh no, because that's cultural. And I don't know what the argument was to keep bingo and whatnot. But, so I'm wondering, have we really solved anything? Yeah, sure, we closed that activity down, but all we're really doing is we're either going to drive it underground or it's going to find its way to the game rooms, which I understand is, as it is right now, it's about a $25 million a year industry. And in fact, this gentleman went further and he says, you know what? I bet you this bill is probably being driven and just supported on by the game room operators and the cockfight operators, because that's money that's otherwise lost to them. And I thought it was, hey, sounds like a good conspiracy theory, but it sounds very logical. And so I'm really, I'm trying to reconcile that, and I get the part about the addiction, about, how when I go there and I spend the money that was meant to go buy the milk and eggs on the way home, or I go there and what I lose is the money that was necessary to pay for my power bills and whatnot. I get that. But how do we reconcile this partial ban? In fact, this gentleman, you know, and you know how when Chamorros, when they convey in a humorous way, and he's basically saying, you know, I don't want you to be pregnant, but by banning casino, you're just going to be a little bit pregnant. And that's really what it is. So either we remove the gambling venues, or or if we're going to allow it, then let's get our arms around it, and let's put in the necessary check and balance, so that we really address what the issues are. But you know, the solution of shut it down, I don't think is really going to go do anything, because all it's going to do is that money is going to find its way to the other gambling venues. But notwithstanding that, because I abhor gambling, I will vote for Bill 50, but I'm going to have to reconcile somehow. Why this and not that? Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Atta. Mr. Speaker, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm very glad that I allowed the retiring speaker to speak before me, because then he gave me the perfect segue into what I need to discuss. And I want to thank the chairman for distributing the financial statement of the Historical Society. Okay. Before you waste too much time looking at this, and with all due respect to the chairman for having provided it to us, it's a waste of time. What they provided to us is the report from the Historical Society. It talks about how much they received in concessions. They received in concessions in 2013, $899,000, 151. Last year, they received $402,000. What these reports don't talk about is exactly what the retiring speaker was talking about. How much money was wagered at that little blue hut in Teason? How much? That's not in any of these pieces of paper. That's what we've been asking for. How much is being wagered? How many I-90s or income tax forms were filed for people who won over $10,000? Or over 1,000, I think it is. I can't remember. 1,000. How many of those were filed with Reverend Tax? Because you and I have a friend that comes in every summer, and when he stays with me during the summer, he goes up to Teason. And he comes back and tells me about the gambling that goes on in Teason, and sitting there and watching the exchange of $25,000 that someone brought in to pay for the amount of money that this gambler had borrowed from the house the night before. There was millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that went through that little blue in Teason. Millions. We're reporting 402,000. We want to know how much. We want to know how much was wagered, how much was won. It's nowhere in any of the reports. We want to know who selected this person. Who oversaw the operation? in the gambling casinos in the States, there are state-run agents there constantly. Don't want to embarrass the chairman by asking how many nights he spent up there as in his prior job, because there should have been somebody there every single night that the casino was open to make sure that the I-90s and whatever, all the money transactions were cleared. For the machines, what was the return? Is it 85%, 90%? What? We have no gaming commission that has all of these rules and regulations. That's what I kept asking. Does revenue and taxation have the regulations by which all of these things are supposed to be run? There's none of it. None. If we're going to do it, then let's do it up, and let's do it up big, and let's do it up right. The way that it is right now, we're supposed to be happy that the gaming group gave $400,000 to the Historical Society to put on the parade and the other things, and be happy. But nobody tells us how many tens of millions of dollars have gone through that casino in Teason. The retiring speaker says that this bill is deficient because it only addresses one thing. Unfortunately, under our new standing rules, we can only address one. So we're going to have to bite one at a time. We're going to have to amend 6462 first and amend subsection 3 in 5205. One thing at a time. Unfortunately, we're having to do this. Madam Speaker, I remember 30 years ago, sitting almost where the retiring speaker is seated, testifying to a committee in my black robe as a judge, detailing to the members of the legislature at that time the horrendous stories that I was experiencing in family court as a result of the gaming parlors that we had on island. I came over in my robe, which was probably improper, because I wanted to make the point that I wasn't speaking just as a citizen, but I was speaking as a person who had, with that robe, heard and witnessed stories that the sponsor had talked about, but local stories. Seated next to me was the Archbishop in full regalia. Because this was the first fight of, well, no, it wasn't the first fight, because there was the anti-gaming gambling bill that I remember that Governor Bradalio signed at the pulpit in the cathedral, just to show how we've been fighting this for so long. I mean, and that was 40 years ago. Well, almost 49. I mean, 79, 78 when Ricky signed that bill. But he signed it at the pulpit. And a few years later, I was sitting here. I was holding it for him there, but sitting here as his, former legal counsel and judge speaking against it. But more importantly, the people of Guam, since that time, have spoken in 3 different referenda. 3 different referenda. Saying no to gambling. The retiring speaker talked about the need to address bingo and cockfighting. Unfortunately, the bill only stops where it does, but there's more than the 3. And we have now the gaming, the Liberty Halls throughout the island with the gaming machines, which we as the legislature approved because we were going to use the money for the hospital. But we're going to have to address these one at a time. That is why when I spoke with the sponsor about the bill, it had to be a very simple repeal. It was going to be we were going to wipe out an exception that was in the law for casino gambling. Just wipe it out. Because unfortunately, we had made an exception in the law in 6462, where we gave the governor the authority to, by proclamation, allow for casino gambling at the carnival. Which, instead of running the 2 weeks or the 1 week that it used to be when the retiring speaker and I were children, to 2 months. I think it's supposed to start next weekend, and it's supposed to go through the month of July. And it runs that entire time not to have kids go to bouncing rooms or to throw darts. It goes to 2 months so they could run this casino. Not to make $482,000 over 2 months. But probably closer to $48 million in wagers. But we don't know about that. That's conjecture on my part. Because they won't report it to us as to how much. This is a simple repeal of an authority that this legislature gave the governor to allow for casino gambling at Piedmont that went from 1 week to 2 months, and then somehow became year-round because one village was having a fiesta, and according to this, as long as or any other fair and carnival which the governor signs a proclamation, though it's nowhere near close to the village that's having the fiesta, it's running the casino for that village. I won't embarrass any of the villages that have used it by naming them. And to add insult to injury, it goes for 2 weekends. The procession is one evening that's attended by fewer people. There are more people that go to the casino for the 2 weeks that that's running for the village than went to the procession for the village. That was supposed to be honoring our patron saints. This section has allowed for an abomination of our celebration of village fiestas and our celebrating the patron saints of the various villages. It has prostituted our villages, our patron saints in their name. We have these casinos open for 2 weeks for each one of the various villages that want to apply for it. If all 19 apply for 2 weeks, plus the 4 weeks plus the 8 weeks that the carnival is on, you've got it running full 12 months. That's why when you drive by Route 16, you see this place open and a few cars sitting out there. This is a very simple bill. Stop one part, and we'll slowly eat at that cancer by taking this one exception away. That's all we're asking for. And the people of Guam on 3 separate occasions, on 3 different referenda, have insisted and demanded that there be no casino gambling on this island. I mean, let me tell you, sometimes I joke it with, my staff jokes with me about the fact that Saipan's made so much money with their casino, and it's not barely even built. They got $200 million last year from it in taxes. That'd be the easiest budget that I could put together. Everybody would get what they wanted. But the expense of what? As the sponsor described, all the social ills that comes with it. And the people have spoken that they're opposed to that that's not what they want. So I'm asking my colleagues, admittedly, this is only one. When we get through this one, I'm hoping I haven't spoken to her yet, but with a good sponsor, to talk to the chief of police. The way that he's been sounding about the fact that his men have been having to spend so much time responding to criminal calls at the machine parlors, we may have an ally. I don't know yet. I haven't spoken to him, but he sure sounds disgusted by the fact that he's having to chase people down, that there are people shooting, people going in with guns. We'll deal with that. Right now, we have one issue before us. This exception that we gave the governor to have by proclamation a casino at the Guam Carnival, and that has been prostituted to become a casino every 2 weekends for patron saints fiestas, to repeal that. And that's why we've offered no amendments just straight up, repeal that section and repeal subsection 3 of gaming allowed. And again, I remind my colleagues, please don't be blinded by this report that was provided to the good chairman. He, in good faith, gave this to us from the Historical Society. But look at it very carefully. Because this only talks about the pittance that they gave us, that this casino gave us, and did not talk about the millions that they kept to themselves or that were lost in wagers that destroyed all the families that the sponsor talked about in the opening statement. I ask my colleagues, please, if not for me and not for the sponsor, but as we did the other day, listen to the voice of the people of Guam that in 3 separate referenda told us no to gambling. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Bill number 50, Senator Regine
Madam
Biscoli, you are
Speaker.
recognized. Senator Morrison, did you have a point of order?
I apologize for interrupting, Madam Speaker. I just, in light of the previous speaker's statements and a lot of the information that has been trickling into our emails, I think we're all getting these concerns that are post-public hearing, and I think these concerns are very, I think, enlightening to all of us. Aside from what we heard in the public hearing, I know the chair has been working to dig more information on this. But in light of the previous speaker, I really believe it's prudent that we go into a committee of the whole. I think it's not only saying that we would potentially vote this down or vote it up. I think what we need to know is that this is the largest event, Madam Speaker, annually that takes place on our island, and I think it's incumbent on us to ensure we have all the information, particularly if this gets voted down or voted up. What will be the impacts and what type of resources that will need to be redirected to assist those who are planning this largest event for the people of Guam. So I think it's prudent that we bring those representatives that are in charge of planning this activity, and those particularly that will provide more information regarding these that are not really clear to all of us. But in the spirit of openness and transparency, I think our people need to know this is the largest event that we're dealing with. I know we're talking particularly about a specific activity, but I want to know exactly, I think many of us need to know how this will completely impact it. We're hearing it from the news. This is going to impact it, but how? How? And if it should impact it, how can we help to make sure this activity is not impacted?
On the motion to go into the committee of the whole on this bill, is there any objection? There's an objection. All in favor of the motion to go into the committee of the whole, please raise your hand. The motion fails. Senator Morrison, you're still recognized. You still have time to discuss the bill. I jumped since it wasn't a point of order. I'm going to continue to recognize you to conclude your remarks on the bill.
I really raised that point, Madam Speaker. I'm undecided on this issue because I understand I'm not a gambler. I've been part of the main committee to run the Liberation Day under the Camacho administration. I know what it's like to run the Liberation activity in the carnival grounds without gambling, without casino. But I just want to make sure that this body is aware when we're hearing representatives of the of the committee stating on publicly that this will have a severe impact to how they would normally run the activity throughout the year. And also it's timing, Madam Speaker's timing. I think for most who probably be part of planning this large event, it starts very early, maybe beginning of the fiscal year. They'll start looking and meeting to decide how they're going to go about planning for this event. And I think for them, or for this committee to deal with this immediate impact, I think this body needs to know. I understand, and I also believe, even with the previous speaker, that to certain policies through the past, even that is a statute for the past 30 years, gaming activities have trickled into statute. And even with the previous speaker, who also joined me in authoring creating the limited gaming fund to use these activities that were put in statute for the past 30 years that have never gone to a greater public benefit. And we've done that, and we're seeing the results of that. It's slow, but we're seeing the results of how it's benefiting our community, particularly with recreation facilities throughout our island. But there's consequences. I think we all know to this, and how this will impact because of the timing. Knowing that they've been planning for several months, I just want to know, or at least the body should know, what would that be? Do we just cut and dry? This is done, you deal with it? Or does this body come in to support whatever needed resources that may be needed to assist their efforts? This Liberation Day, or this event, is our event. And measures that are put in place that will impact it, although we believe it's something that it has to be done, I would like to know the consequences of this decision that we're going to make today, and have something in line, unless there is others here that have something in play that will assist this committee. I just want to conclude by sharing that I know what it's like to be part of a committee. I shared it earlier that ran for 8 years. 8 years. I believe about 8 years, an event, the largest event in our island, without casino. So I know that experience. It's hard. It's hard to raise the revenue because it's obvious that this resource that they're tapping makes it a lot easier to run other activities to support the operations of not only the Liberation Day Festival, but also the 2 months of activity. But because of the timing, I think we need to know what is the impact. And how are we going to address that impact as a body to help this activity? That's all I'm trying to point out here, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Morrison. Senator Bisco-Lee, you are recognized on Bill 50.
Sijismasi, Madam Speaker, Buenas and Hafaday colleagues. I rise in support of Bill 50. The Liberation Carnival has long been a summer tradition cherished by Guam's families. And as a child, I can remember going to the carnival with my parents, with my cousins, eating treats from food carts, taking rides, playing games. It was affordable, clean, family fun for our whole family could enjoy. Today, however, the carnival's popularity and family-friendly atmosphere has waned. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak about our values, and I want to speak about facts. Much of the rationale for maintaining gambling activities at the carnival has been the revenue generated by these activities. While gambling does provide a certain amount of revenue to support the carnival and other charitable organizations, the benefits of those funds must be weighed against the social costs of gaming. Colleagues, let's look at the facts. The people of Guam have consistently opposed gambling operations. Every time the public has voted on this issue, they have voted against expanding gambling on our island. 5 times within the past 8 years. 5 times, Mr. Speaker. In fact, the last time, in 2012, every single village voted against expanding gambling. Every single village. In addition, there are serious questions that must be raised about the transparency of the Liberation Carnival gambling operations as they exist right now, and you alluded to them earlier. As reported in the Post, the Office of Public Accountability cited a number of concerns about gambling operations conducted over a 6-year period from 2004 to 2009, including a lack of accountability about the use of funds, poor record keeping, and negligence regarding tax-exempt filing requirements. These issues seem even more pressing today, with the construction of a casino in the midst of the Paseo Carnival grounds without oversight or input from the public. It is also a fact that the Guam Department of Labor investigators found workers that did not have official authorization to work here on Guam, operating at that construction site. Our people deserve to know who will be operating this casino, how much money will be raised, where that money will be going, and they must be assured that the correct tax protocols, labor, and all other laws are being followed. I also have concerns about safety issues posed by the Liberation Casino. It is a fact. We have seen several examples recently of crimes being committed at gaming establishments locally. With large amounts of money changing hands, how will operators ensure the safety of the players and the carnival goers? What, if any, background checks are being done on those working at the casino, given that there will be young children attending the adjacent carnival festivities? We know how many families use Paseo as a walking track. Children play at that playground. As a mother, I am concerned about bringing my children to any event that could put their safety at risk, and I know many families share those same concerns. There have been threats made by the Mayor's Council that removing gambling activities from the carnival will cause the summer festival to be canceled. Let's ask ourselves, if a ban on casino gambling threatens the sustainability of this event, we must ask hard questions about what role the Liberation Casino plays in our Liberation festivities. If it is now just used as an excuse for our people to spend their money on games of chance, should we still invest time and energy into it? How does this honor those who have lost their lives in World War II? My Nana and all the other Manumku who survived these atrocities. It is a fact that the Liberation Parade and Carnival has been an important part of our post-war cultural heritage. But for it to survive, we must reclaim its original purpose as a safe place for family fun. I stand in support of the authors, Senator Nelson and Speaker Cruz, in their efforts to address this issue of gambling. I believe the legislature must reflect the will of the people and send a strong message about our community, who we are, and what we value. Sujos Masi.
Thank you very much. How many other senators wish to be heard on this bill? 3. As you know, we're supposed to be at Leo Palace by 11. I don't want all of us to get traffic tickets trying to get there by 11. So would there be any major objection if we continued recess until 2 o'clock and take it up at that point? I don't want to rush any of the three of you or cut any of you short. I think it's imperative that we hear from all of you. So we'll recess at this point until... Is everybody going to stay up there until 2? Can we come back at 1? Well, it starts at 11, so can we be back at 1? To start this? Okay. 1 o'clock. We'll take a lunch break from now until 1 o'clock.